Just give me the 90s in terms of business. For me, just I'm tired of living through interesting times. I just want a calm, boring, like everybody's doing well kind of.
I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about lazy hotels and lazy businesses.
I want to do something that's actually sustainable and move forward. And art isn't something they recycled. It's something that, unless it's for the lobby, the stuff that goes in the hallways and in the rooms or in the garbage. So the first thing I'm always will say about sustainability and impact and all that stuff, I'm about additive sustainability. Do what you want to do. We'll just figure out how to do it in a way that's good.
Climate change, people talk about it. Some people believe, some people don't. The world is changing. How do we really create sustainability and not be lazy?
Everyone seems to think that, particularly for companies, that it's not me, it's a personal problem. So the consequences, everybody's going to get messed up. Oh, I was going to curse. And we all have to do something together.
You can make the choice on if you want to be more green, not to have your room turned every day, not to have your towels washed all the time. Again, those are small changes, but small changes that add up.
Additive sustainability is that you should still get your room turned down, but instead use a steam washer with that smart business. So you give them what they want, which is a clean room, but you're not damaging the environment as much and you're using as little water as possible.
Yeah. Lazy hospitality, that could be seen, oh, that's maybe extra work. We're highly efficient as human beings.
Cool.
We can create processes that really maximize potential and time and availability.
We'll figure it out. I don't have all the answers, but someone will hit their mind and say, oh, you should do it this way. How do we stop being lazy? How do we move forward? If we have the pieces, how do you put that together?
Hey y'all, how we doing? Rob Napoli here, host of Hospitable. I'm excited to bring today's episode about removing lazy business from the hospitality industry. And with this conversation, we sat down with the CEO and founder of Yogh Group, Levar Jackson. Yogh Group is a sustainable and impactful hotel development and management firm that is making great strides to be at the vanguard of hospitality and sustainability, especially as society transitions into this interconnected, intelligent, low-carbon world. Yogh Group incorporates hospitality, art, agriculture, and cuisine into its operations to lead the way in sustainability. So this episode was great because Levar is also based in New York City, so we're able to get together at Omniboost New York office and sit down and chop it up. So without further ado, enjoy this episode on how to remove lazy business from hospitality with Levar Jackson. Well, Levar, I'm excited to have you in the office, and even cooler that that you're located in New York City, so that we can do this in person because it's just so much fun. And we're really excited to jump into the podcast. Those for tuning in, we are here. I'm Rob Napoli, host another episode of Hospitable, where we're going to talk a little bit about lazy hotels and lazy businesses as it relates to hospitality, which you have a lot of experience with. And I want to rattle off your CV, but you've done a lot of things from being involved in different nonprofits and different groups, but also working in the industry and being a hotelier and working in art. I mean, you've been all over the place in hospitality, which is why we brought you on. So maybe give us a quick high-level overview of how you've been involved in hospitality and then what you're doing today.
Yes, I started my journey in hospitality, oh God, it's going to age me 15 years ago. And I had founded a company and we sold art to hotels. We started out doing, photographic prints during the, 2009, like right after that economic meltdown. And I was able to succeed by being cheaper, more flexible, and quicker at that. And then as time grew, we did more things as the economy recovered, and they wanted things I couldn't provide. So I went out and found like really good artists and try to make sure that everyone is on board with it, not just a select few, I would say. So trying to be inclusive with the art. It always stuck in my mind, even then, about sustainability. And of course, we're going to get to that. But the amount of waste that happens, particularly around art and furnishings, every 5 to 7 years, a lot of that stuff ends up in the landfill. They recycle as much as they can, but art isn't something they recycled. It's something that, unless it's for the lobby, which is usually big, grand stone pieces or something like that, the stuff that goes in the hallways and in the rooms or in the garbage. So I took note of that, and I always talk very circular. So people who know me, it's a journey. It's a journey, but it always touches back to where it belongs. And COVID hit, and this is the third recession I got it. I was in. This is business. I just want Just give me the 90s in terms of business for me. Just a little bit of quiet and calm. I'm tired of living through interesting times. I just want a calm, boring, like everybody's doing well kind of.
I mean, story of our decade, right? As we look at this business today and tomorrow.
It always is. As everything was falling apart, I had a friend who was going into the green industry, and we went into carbon credits, and I saw how there are some very, very effective, useful carbon credits, but there are also a lot that are not. And it's very hard to differentiate without doing a lot of your own self-labor or doing a lot of verification that's outside of them. And I thought to myself, like, do I want to be in an industry where I feel like I would rather just sell used cars? I want to do something that's actually sustainable and move forward. And we're at the point where we have all the pieces for sustainability, but we need to put them together. Not one thing is going to rule it, and by us just trying to rely on one thing is what got us here. What got us here come in terms of sustainability is oil. Like, we were like, oil could be everything. It's plastic. It's your toothbrush. It's everything. It's little pieces of sparkle in your toothpaste between like 1990 and 2010. Those are little pieces of plastic. And no, everyone's like, where did microplastic come from? It's a toothpaste. I'm on to other things, but yes. We need to break ourselves of that. We have all the tools in the toolbox. We keep trying to use one hammer to do everything. You just end up with a bunch of broken furniture. So like, how do we stop being lazy? How do we move forward? If we have the pieces, how do you put that together? You can do that with energy, with heating, cooling, electricity. You can do that with, plant materials and, advanced agriculture. Not everything has to involve products that come from human labor. So like, and using the wrong tool in the wrong place when it comes to sustainability, I'm completely meandering and I love this, is you have to use it in the right way or it becomes unsustainable. So here in the US, it's almond trees. Almonds are highly sustainable things if they're planted in the appropriate places. But if you plant them in Southern California where it doesn't rain and it's a high needs water plant, agriculture, you plant it in the worst place that you could. Yes, it's sunny, so the trees grow faster. It's a perfect climate, but not when it comes to rain. So it's soaking up so much water, it has become unsustainable, and we can't keep growing almond trees in Southern California. So we have to do something different. The first thing I'm always will say about sustainability and impact and all that stuff, I'm about additive sustainability. Do what you want to do. We'll just figure out how to do it in a way that's good. Like, you could say like, stop traveling, but what is the social impact of that? The social impact of not traveling is xenophobia, because you believe whatever wildness you see on TV, and you're like, it's them versus us versus, oh, they're just like me. Their food may be different, but they're still people. And travel helps break that. And I'm a huge advocate for tourism and travel and hospitality, because you get to see all the things you normally don't get to see and experience. And sometimes just sitting in, somewhere else and seeing the sunset helps reset your mind a bit.
I think that's interesting. And I love that you kind of went on this little diatribe, and you even said, I love this because it opens up a lot of the questions the topics I want to dive into, because I have a lot of thoughts on this as well, because you can't have hospitality without tourism, right? Like, hospitality is meant for travel. It's meant for experience. If you think of humans, our most sentient memories are traveling, for good or for bad. Most of the time good, but most great travel experiences have like something crazy, like a lost suitcase, or, the room you booked wasn't available, or something crazy. But then that whole thing turns into being the experience of a lifetime. And so we brought this great example up, but we talk about sustainability. And I think sustainability is something that, let's be honest, it's a very big topic for a lot of companies. I know, climate change, people talk about it. Some people believe, some people don't, but we can all agree that the world is changing and we do need to figure a way to be more sustainable. And so we always talk about it, but it's always talk, and there's not a lot of action. So I love this idea of like one tool that we're always using, and we're in it with broken furniture because we are not actively putting that in. So, I know that your career has taken you to this place of being in hospitality, being in art, doing the different things. You're like, how do we really create sustainability and not be lazy? Because it's lazy to do like a small, like, oh, we're donating trees. Like, how do we actually like put action to our words? And that's something that you're really passionate about, which is what, when we met for the first time, we were vibing out on. So how do you go about working with the hospitality industry to enforce this message and put action to words?
So the first thing you have to do is the motivation behind it, because everyone seems to think that, particularly for companies, that it's not me, it's a personal problem. Like climate change and sustainability are personal problems. They're just as much corporate liabilities as they are personal ones. So when this used to be once in 100-year storm hits, the East Coast and destroys a bunch of homes, there's some hospitality that gets knocked down too. So we need to focus just as much on people as we are the business, because that trickles down and says like, hey, this business is now gone. People have lost their livelihoods. Those people who own that thing may just be locals, maybe the person who's down the street, and this is like the place they turn their property into. They're just affected just as much as person. So, and it comes to the same thing with insurance rates. You think in Florida, where they're saying like, hey, we're not insuring a lot of people, there are a lot of businesses that can't get insured as well. It's everyone's problem, not just you. So it's saying like, hey, get rid of the lazy thinking when it comes to consequences. So you start there. So the consequences, everybody's going to get messed up. Oh, I was going to curse. Everyone's going to get messed up from this, and we all have to do something together. So okay, we start there. So the part of myself that I realized with working in hospitality for so long is that there has to be an ROI on sustainability. Whether it is, when you take into account the potential damages, there is a clear line for ROI, because your business is running. Even if your business isn't, so like you're in Florida and you get hit by this hurricane, your hotel may be fine, but the rest of the town may be destroyed. Do you think someone's coming to stay at your hotel in the middle of a hurricane? No. So you lose, there's lost revenue. Of course, there's insurance for that. But again, then you lose your insurance because you're constantly pulling on that, or the insurance premiums are so high that it's mind-boggling. You go out of business. So the cost is there. We just have to make sure that it's apparent. That again, it's very easy to say out of sight, out of mind. That's being lazy. Be very apparent that this can happen. When it comes to your systems and how things work, hotels are still talking about like LED light bulbs and low flow toilets. And that's something that we haven't had as individuals for 30 some odd years in the US. Oh God, I'm old. I remember when that first came, when we were like, no more of this, incandescent light bulbs. So how do you evolve more? If we put an ROI at it, on the back of it, we can do it. As businesses, you are compelled as a business to do this. So for instance, something that is a smart thing that, pulled hotels in is the minibar. The minibar is like, you get a little bottles of alcohol, the food. Do you know how much work it comes behind that minibar? There's sensors, there's like, like connectivity, there's all the smart stuff. If I said to a hotel or a business saying like, hey, I want to make that refrigerator green, they would go, where's my ROI? But if I said I want to turn it into a mini bar, they would say yes, because they can directly see that line. So the way I've moved myself forward as a person, as inventions and the things that I've done, is trying to attach that ROI so that people will jump on it anyway. So if I say, hey, I can build you an HVAC system that can provide heating, cooling, electricity to this building, but do it in a way that it's so efficient that you have so much overabundance with as little, dependence on solar panels as possible, but all that power that you pull in that doesn't go to heating and cooling, which is normally the highest cost thing, and then sell that back to the community, you've turned your HVAC system into a power plant and a money-generating power plant. So there's ROI there. And once you do that, once we've already built our pre-production unit, the whole industry will follow behind it anyway, because there's money behind it. Sometimes you've got to use the system, even though you may not like the system, the way it's exactly set up. Use it to our benefit to push things forward. We tried it with carbon credits, but because the regulations around carbon credits are super weak. And I could get into why certain carbon credits are really terrible, and they're not factual, and Let me not go too far off the rails.
Yeah, no, I think the interesting piece here, right, is when we're thinking about the systems and designing things with ROI in mind, but also making things more efficient, even little things, right? We see at hotels now where you can make the choice on if you want to be more green, not to have your room turned every day, not to have your towels washed all the time, reusability of those things. Like, and those are small changes, but small changes that add up if, let's say, 25% of your guests choose to do that. Well, where's the ROI? Well, maybe you have one less on your staffing. You can reduce different things there. That has a different impact economically in the labor force that you hire in part of tourism and hospitality. But you can link ROI to action, and those are little things that we need more of in this industry. And really thinking about that from the whole experience, because it does also change the guest experience, which is at the core what you want to keep holistic.
Yes. So taking your example about, washing the sheets or changing it down, because my vision of additive sustainability is that you should still get your room turned down, but instead use a steam washer just to give it a flash to freshen up the sheets. Instead of doing a full load, just have it a quick flash and have it brought back. And you can, set two sheets per room, have it, on a thing, like a rack, and say room 312. You flash out the first one, put on the fresh one, then you have another one that's ready to go. And then when the room is completely emptied, you do the full load and clean everything, like, between guests. But that's smart business. So you give them what they want, which is a clean room. It smells clean, but you're not damaging the environment as much, and you're using as little water as possible.
Yeah. And there's direct ROI there and those things. And going back to this idea of lazy hospitality, that could be seen, that's maybe extra work. But in theory, you can create systems and we can create processes. We're highly efficient as human beings. Well, we can create processes that really maximize potential and time and availability.
We'll figure it out. I don't have all the answers, but someone will hit their mind and say, oh, you should do it this way. We're highly creative. Let's engage that creativeness in our business processes. Instead of saying like, oh, we just have to do the same things, perhaps using that steam water and then, having it as a heat sink afterwards as the water's still hot, it can heat up hot water instead. Using the things that we have. I built the energy system with stuff that you could find from Home Depot, explicitly to try to keep the cost low as possible. The parts are right there. Why aren't we using it? As a whole, it's just we haven't done this. I get a lot of we haven't done this way before. Why should we do it any different? Well, until your stuff is washed away, or until it stops raining, and we are in New York. It hasn't rained since like September, really, and like everything's catching on fire. And by the time we see the results of what we're doing, it'll be too late. Yeah. And we're already seeing it. It's like I've lived in New York City basically my whole entire life. I'm born and bred New Yorker. It hasn't rained effectively in 2 months. It's sprinkled a little bit overnight one night, but things are still on fire. There haven't been wildfires here before. I never thought to myself or went out. I never remember going outside and like not being able to breathe.
Yeah, I mean that was crazy. Prospect Park not too long ago, and I was just like, "There's not much trees in New York to begin with, and here we are losing part of it, and also all the building fires, things catching on because everything's so dry. Yeah. It's been a bit crazy, and I think you're making a great point that a lot of this stuff with sustainability we're thinking about, we don't think about it or we don't do anything about it until it's too late, until it's gone. Versus how do we be proactive versus reactive? And this is where I talk about a lot of people love to talk about sustainability, but action does speak louder than words. And where there's a will, there's a way. They great example of the heating and cooling system with parts at Home Depot. There's always a way. It's a matter of, are you willing to put action? And I think more in hospitality specifically, especially with the rise of these big conglomerate brands away from the mom and pops, there needs to be more direct action and linkage to the impact that they can create, and also, being at the forefront of that change.
So particularly, I love the example of the large conglomerate brands. So the mom and pop ones may not have the resources to do beyond. I went and I could have already built a hotel by now. I spent 2.5 years working with schools, doing these things you normally don't do. You work with universities on developing technology. maybe mom and pop shops don't have that, stuff. But this multi-billion-dollar conglomerate does have that access. They can reach out to university and say, how do we have our line of hotels, sustainable, and let them figure it out. The students are fantastic. It creates a great pipeline for work. It just takes that one extra step. And yeah, it's lazy because all you have to do, you're just asking someone else to do it for you. You participate in it, and you also find talent. You find future employees. You cultivate universities the way we're supposed to be cultivating them. You embrace them in a way that the linkages hasn't really been that strong recently for universities and businesses. And it's fairly easy. It's not, I had 2 capstones of myself, and I'm the worst professor that has ever existed. I am always like halfway across the world. The students are like, I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know either. So we'll have a little bit of fun.
Yeah. And I think this is really cool. Thinking about this like holistically too, is not only are you using it to solve new problems, to create talent. Think about the idea, the whole thing of creating brand loyalty, because the students of today are the business travelers of tomorrow. And if they get to work on a really cool project with, let's say, a big brand like a Marriott, they're probably more likely to want to become a Marriott Bonvoy earner. And when they're traveling, always look for a Marriott Bonvoy over a competitor. And this is where, when you think about direct ROI, you're also creating brand loyalty and LTV with future business. And it's something that seems simple. Obviously, there's things you have to do to put those things in place, but it's looking at it from a big picture. And then you're creating hopefully more goodwill into the brand and more problem solving to the brand of people who want to come work for you and solve big problems to even take it one step further. And that's where I feel we have so much opportunity for growth, especially with the amount of universities across the United States and just as a whole. It's absolutely crazy what you could come up with and the type of things that you can tie into or tap into.
Yeah, so there's so many people, like so many talented minds, young and old, they're just chomping at the bit. They may be intimidated and thinking it's too big, because when I started, I thought everything was too big, and there was no way. I don't know how to write a patent brief. I can now with my eyes closed. I've been through it a bunch of times. But when I first got into it, just part of being a good leader is like bringing people on, and you need to take away some of those barriers. So like, hey, my mechanical engineer friend, you've done a lot. I want you to work with me. This patenting stuff seems crazy, but I'll help and take some of the load off. Or you get a lawyer to help. And sometimes it's the financial, barriers to entering into certain fields. Then start, like scholarship grants, or, I again worked a lot with nonprofits, and I want to create my own nonprofit to help with small businesses being able to patent their things and move forward and use the system the way they're supposed to. But it's, $40,000 to drop on a patent. Mom and pop shops may not have that straight away when you're non-revving and you end up, in a situation where we are now, where people who do have patents don't have the money to enact them. They just end up being bought up by large companies, and then the patents are squashed.
Yeah. So this is kind of where we look at how do we not become lazy, and that's just putting action out there. And not everything's going to work, and it's okay to create an initiative that doesn't work. I want to change to a different not a hugely different topic, but something that I know that you were doing, and if I'm not mistaken, and right now I just was saying it in my head, and I can't remember that you just finished up your presidency of the hospitality group here in New York. Tell me about your experience doing that and the name of the group, because I'm blanking on it right now.
It's in EWH New York. I am past president. I was president as well as VPs before that. There are 2 different VP spots. I was also director of programming. It is so heartwarming. So we are a networking group, but our scholarships, we give it to interior designers, architects, anybody in hospitality, chefs. And it's great to support the people. And it's also a really good pipeline to pull them up as adults, to see how much we've changed. And I'll give a very big shout out to Lori and Josh, who are both scholarship directors at one point, how we've changed the way we give scholarships. So we went from, GPA based to needs based. So as long as you're above like a 3.0 or 2.5 or something, I think it's 3.0 now. We widen the amount that we will give for scholarships per student versus giving everyone $1,000. It's not really, this is the US, the $1,000 are just books.
Yeah.
And of course books are good, but not if you can't pay for the classes. So our largest in history single award was $22,000 last year. And it went to a woman who was experiencing homelessness. And we helped get her right and got her through her last year of school. And now she's an interior designer. And that's really, that's what I'm really there for, of like cultivating the next, making sure the next people are good. And I want to branch that out further into hospitality, because there are a lot of hospitality jobs that aren't represented: interior design, architect, or culinary. There's engineers, there's finance. And I'll tell you, finance is such a problem in hospitality. So that's
why that's why Omniboost is here. Finance integrations. That's a problem we know very well.
So I want to broaden it and move forward. There's always my own personal passion projects, just to, be a part of the process of awarding these students. Gives me a lot of, hope. I have one last year of on the board as executive advisor, and then I get to retire. It's been 9 years. So about 9 on this board, and it'll be eight. So technically I have 2 more years if I want to go back, but we'll see. But I love it. I have been through, again, we went through COVID. And so basically like the hospitality industry, like break to pieces, and how every single one of our board members helped pull us back together, because I thought we were gone. And we're not. And I'm so proud of the work we've done and just being more, inclusive, and the sheer fact that I was the first person of color to be president in 40 years. It's been around 40 years. But as we go forward, we're becoming more inclusive. I see more people's faces, and inclusion isn't just based on color. It's also like, it's based on job titles. It's based on language spoken. It's all those things help shape the way you are, and it makes for a better organization and also better business. So I've always said this, and I've not been wrong. Every time a business says we're stuck, I say your C-suite is exactly the same. Either they're from the exact same school, the exact same type of people. I understand like produces in like, but sometimes you need that dissension. You need that little bit of friction, because it's a different, point of view that you may not have. While I was working at I'll throw it back. While I was working at the Green Company, it was run by Gen Zers, and I'm not a Gen Zer. We were just working on an app or something, and I kept talking about like visibility. Like, I'm like, these letters are too small. I have good eyesight, but someone who's maybe slightly older than me or doesn't have good eyesight, they're gonna freaking complain. And they're like, no, it's okay, it's fine. And immediately, like, the calls were coming in, like, it's not legible, it's in a weird font, we can't see that, and all the things I did say. So social age is a part of inclusion. Like, having everyone sit at the table gives you a good viewpoint, and it takes away some of that laziness. And you don't have to do it yourself, because sometimes it is hard to get outside of your body and outside of your mind, outside of your perspective. You need that outside, push.
Well, I love that you share that, because one, it's really cool what that group has been able to do. And I bring it up because when we were talking, when we met for the first time, what I was really impressed with is that your whole career has been about action. And it's not only within your career, but, I look at being a part of a network like that, part of your career, but it's an extension of the career because it's passion too. And so we're kind of bringing that full circle. I really love that there are these opportunities for the hospitality industry to continue to grow and thrive, and also create opportunity for itself. And that's what I think is really unique. Coming back to your point about friction, I love this. We have a kind of a core philosophy within our leadership team at Omniboost, which is disagree and commit. It's okay to disagree. And we are very open and transparent in the leadership team about highlighting those disagreements. What do we think? And sometimes you're not always right. And sometimes you be on the wrong end of the vote. But the idea is that we will always disagree and commit. So maybe we don't agree on everything. We're going to always share our viewpoints to bring the full picture so that we can actually solve problems. And then we commit to a course of action. And we're trying to put, our money where our mouth is, so to speak. And that is something you just kind of highlighted. This is a great takeaway for so many as we look at the future of hospitality. It's only going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to iterate and get bigger and better, and more experiences are going to pop up. And you need that little bit of friction to continue to solve great problems, create great guest experiences, and create more sustainable opportunities to allow us to do these amazing things in our lives.
Yeah, it's that opposing viewpoint may not be opposing because they don't like you. They're maybe opposing you because they have a different way of thinking. And it's something that I do run into myself, where I'm not an engineer. I'm not a physicist. I get a lot of pushback saying, like, how could you invent this stuff? I did. It was in my mind. It popped up. Just because you don't have perhaps the classical training doesn't mean that your idea is any less valid. It just has to be vetted the same as anyone else's. And don't take it personally, because I've been ripped to pieces over some of the stuff that I've done and some of the stuff I tried to invent. But you also have to have that open mindset of, like, if you're an investor, have that open mindset to say, this may not work, but we're doing it for the right reasons, and we're going to do it in a way that we want to make you money. Yeah. Lazy business also starts all the way at the top. C-suite, if you're not willing to take that meeting with not a random stranger, but with that person who could change your company, could give you good ideas, that's, I think that's like the way I want to live my life from now on, is always trying to have that meeting, trying to say the yes, but don't always have to commit to completing the plan, but at least I want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to make sure that you're open to growth in terms of hearing ideas and learning and evolving. You don't always have to. I coach a lot of founders on this in my past life, and I always said, we're running a program, and I was just doing a program for the Benelux region that I do every year. And I always, when they come in, and they're going to meet about 100 people in New York in 2 week time, and I said, look, you're going to get some amazing feedback. You're going to get some pushback. You're going to get advice. They're going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. All of these things. Take it with a grain of salt. Understand that you need to hear it all, because you do. Hearing all of it allows you to think critically and more deeply about the problem that you're solving. But you don't have to listen to it all. You hear it, you digest it, but you don't have to use it. And, it's always that kind of light bulb moment of growth, of just, this is why you take that meeting. This is why you have those conversations. This is why you get on a podcast. This is why you jump on a panel. And the idea behind it is just to learn, evolve, and continue to grow and figure out what makes sense for you and what doesn't. And that is so powerful. And I love that that's kind of your life motto.
I also want to touch on, how do you also give that critique, that feedback? So when people come to me, and I want to make sure, like, I want this to become a thing. When you're giving that feedback, never say it's impossible. Say, like, these are the pain points I see, but if you can address those, I feel like, X, Y, Z. If you're saying, like, hey, I want to make a flying car, I would tell you, people can't drive on the street. I don't want to let them loose in the skies, but I mean, it could happen, and perhaps they do need a pilot's license. So if you're, like, because that's the thing, that if I didn't have the kind of the, not tough skin, but a little bit of, like, the New Yorker in me, that I've been told no so many times, that you're not classically trained, you can't do this, you can't invent this. I can, and I did. So if I had listened, it would have taken me out, and I would have just stayed in my box. And people are afraid of change, and people are afraid to address their insecurities around that, because if I say, hey, I'm going to make algae oil, which I have an algae growth system, and that is a whole fun thing, it really unshakes people around, like, fossil fuels. Like, no, you're just replacing one and the other. You can still have the exact same pipeline. You can still have the fueling stations. You can still, everything stays the same. You're just not using dead dinosaurs. And something that's more sustainable, but it doesn't change anything other than that, again, it harkens back to that lazy thinking.
I love that. And I think with that, it's a great way to end the episode. Levar, I really appreciate getting to chat and talk about how do we put action to our words, and that is so important. But for those listening, whether you're listening in your headphones on the audio version or watching this on YouTube, how can they get in touch with you? How can they find you? How can they learn more? Or maybe they have an idea they want to explore with you. How do they get in touch, Levar?
Always, you can find me on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram, which is Yogh Group. We're the only ones with that name because we did lock that down. You can find us on our website. It was Yogh.group. We're updating the website. It'll be fun and fantastic in a week or two. I would just reach out to me. LinkedIn's usually the best way. There are times where I ignore it, but no, we pulled ourselves off of Twitter because it was weird and wild and crazy.
It's the Wild West, my friend.
Yeah, we may end up going on Blue Sky, but Twitter was a little bit too crazy for us anymore. So we had to pull ourselves off of that. But Instagram, we also can reach us there, and Threads. Yeah, we're definitely on Threads.
Well, I'll make sure to link your LinkedIn, the website, and the Instagram handle all in the show notes. All you got to do is pop those open, click on it, and you can get in touch with Levar here. Levar, thanks for coming down to the office in New York and doing this in person. I'm really glad to have you on. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And for those out there listening, this is another episode of Hospitable. If you could, be a tier 1, like, rate, subscribe, leave a review, do all those amazing things for us. And until next time, stay well.